Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of Tackle Productions. Today I back off being joined by both Jake and Matt.
Who?
Oh, I did that yesterday. I was like, I want to say Jimmy, but it's Jake. So look, you guys get mixed up all the time. Jimmy and Matt.
Hey everybody.
Can't believe you forgot the champ's name. What the fuck?
It happens. And Fluff will be joining at some point later in this match. He's just running behind. It happens. Keep in mind, there's buttons down below. Feel free to click them. They're there for a reason. So this is the weekend before Gen Con. We're kind of being a little bit more serious here and playing decks we're more familiar with and just trying to push our opponents. So with that being said, Jimmy is continuing to bring Mechikabura, while Matt has brought Gogeta back. Guys, take it away.
Hey everybody. When you see me on this channel, more often than not, I'm playing Gogeta, which is kind of the point behind that is it's by far my best deck. So I usually only appear on this channel when I'm winning games, and I'm usually winning games with this deck. And this is what I will be taking to Gen Con. And Jimmy, you want to tell them about your deck?
So I'm still playing Mechikabura. I think it's a really strong deck going into this format, where this format's so wide open, and Mechikabura has so many options for different play styles. So I feel really comfortable with the deck, and lately I've just been doing a lot of experimentation, running cards that don't seem very valuable on surface level, but have some interesting interactions with the rest of the deck. So you'll see a couple of these cards like going into this matchup, and not saying that they stayed in the deck or got bumped up in the deck just yet, because I'm not exactly sure if I like them or not. But mostly, this is just an experimental game, trying to figure out what I like or where I want the deck to be going into Gen Con.
Well, the idea of experimental, two things. Thing one, hey Fluff, and thing two is Mechikabura broken sealed in your energy, knowing what he can play on turn 3 or 4.
So I actually have Heroine's Lineage in my hand at this point.
Okay.
So I was just like, you know what? I want him to play it. I want him to board Gogeta because it's going to be mine.
Would you say that you were on a experimenting with things?
Yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
And while Jimmy is experimenting, I am overthinking this game, but I am playing as pretty much as hard as I can. I'm just trying to train for Gen Con. This is pretty much the version of the deck I won locals with a few weeks ago. I actually had to go through Fluff's King Cold in the finals, which was a wild game. So I'm pretty happy with the current version of Gogeta. And I will say, I have made some modifications in the past month that will, if nothing else, keep Heroine's Lineage at bay, as you will see later on.
When I think of Matt, I think of Gogeta, and when I think of Matt's Gogeta, I think of a very specific deck. So, I know exactly what Matt's going to play at every point in this game. I know what he's going to do, and still, he just brute forces through everything, and it blows my mind, because if I tried that, I would die turn 2. Matt has an uncanny ability to look you in the eye, go, you know exactly what I'm going to do, and then slap you in the face right afterwards.
Yeah. That's what makes playing against Matt so dangerous, is you can turn to turn with him, and then he will still just beat you with it.
That's my hope, is that at Gen Con, a lot of people, unless you're one of the valued subscribers to this channel, will be like, Gogeta, what the hell is he doing? This isn't meta relevant. And they will not know this deck play for play.
I will say we did catch it at the end of the match. There was a couple times where I countered while you had the Piccolo Unison in play, and we did not follow up on the auto. That is just a good learning experience overall for going into Gen Con, to remember your autos.
Yeah, you gotta remember that.
which is one major difference in the way I used to play this deck. I have taken out Jiren and I've taken out Gotenks completely, and my only unison is Piccolo, other than my SCR. And I essentially use him in games where I see him on turn 2. I need to do something with energy on turn 2, and I'm not concerned about dying on the subsequent turn. Because if I'm playing something swarmy, like AOD or Slug or, well, really even Red Broly, I can't afford to go into potentially their turn 2 or their turn 3 with no open energy. Mm-hmm. So I'm still in the process of, memorizing Piccolo's frickin' auto, which you'd think I'd be able to do by now.
Slight misplay on my part there. I meant to swing into the Piccolo unison with Mechikabura, and I just called his leader. And since we're, practicing for Gen Con, I'm like, I'm just gonna have to live with my mistakes, and I'll keep it. And
I would point out I would have let him take it back because he lets me take back a significant mistake this next turn. I have it in my head for some stupid reason that I can't swing before I've awoken, and I start to panic on my next turn here, where, not on this turn, but I'll wait till let's play out the turn, and then I'll explain it, what I did.
Of course. And I believe I do start following up into the unison at this point, if I remember correctly, yeah.
Which is one thing I love about this Piccolo unison, is people are like, oh, I've got to kill a unison. I'm like, I'm essentially putting it out there as bait. It's like, I get to draw a card off it. It's useful if you can get the King Piccolo out, because you can use the -2 on the Piccolo unison to wipe their board. But the problem is that now the King Piccolo is limited to 1. That aspect is pretty limited. So I almost use it as a decoy. It's just something to do, on turn 2 if you're not playing a hyper aggro deck. Yep. As silly as that sounds, because, people are like, oh, I got to worry about Wolfang, or I got to worry about Yamcha, I can't let him have a unison. And I'm like, yes, by all means, please attack it. Because I don't like to go below 4 life with this deck unless I'm digging, or if I have a King Vegeta's imposing presence, I'll let myself go down to 3 to free play that.
So your leader has a double strike on the backside inherently, and that was something I was really worried about, because I run a significant amount of negates in my deck. So if I have to negate something, it's no big deal to throw one at it. But I was wanting to be able to spend my energy on my turn and only worry about like one double strike on your side. So that's why I was wanting to turn my leader sideways at your unison and not give you that life and give you the ability to awaken at this point.
And what you're seeing right now is my screw up. I just panicked because I was like, oh man, I haven't played my 3 energy yet, and I've got to awaken. And now I've lost all this energy, so Jimmy lets me go back and take back the leader swing. And then it occurs to me, I don't need to do that. It's like, I could have just gone through with the leader swing and just not awoken in my combo phase. And then, played my 3-drop and then awoken. So I wouldn't have got the benefit of the double strike. So he very graciously lets me correct that, but I don't think it affected the outcome of the game. It may have affected Jimmy's play order, and for that I apologize, but he was very gracious in letting me change the order on that.
So if you did not, if you ended up tapping the energy before swinging with your lead, because you already swung with the lead and I called no negates, if you had tapped the energy, then swung with lead, I would have called a negate there, so I wouldn't have to deal with the double strike on the leader. Because I knew there would be a double strike coming from the Gogeta afterwards. So that was the only play order difference. And
I apologize if I didn't make clear. By all means, feel free to negate the leader swing when I, after you let me play my 5-drop.
No, it's all good. I have this philosophy with playing against people at locals and allowing them to take stuff back. That I want you to play the best version of your deck and not play a worse version because you screwed up your order or whatever. Because I want to test my deck against the best variation of another deck.
If you win because you won, not because your opponent made a blatant mistake.
And therein lies the difference in player skill. Like, my goal is to make top 50% at Gen Con, whereas Jimmy's goal is to make final top cut. So we're dealing with two very different players in terms of player skill here.
Now, Jimmy, just real quick, you kind of mentioned earlier that you were concerned with the double strike on the lead. Mechikabura, to me, seeing everything that you've done with this deck.
Oh, Fluff, let me cut you off just there. I just strats of Universe 7, which I run 3 of in this deck, and that's the only reason Jimmy is not heroines me here.
Yeah.
But what do you think is, like, Mechikabura to me seems like one of those decks that's just generically good against everything. Like, it doesn't have a clear-cut weak point. But what are you worried about going into Gen Con? Like, if you were to take Mechikabura, what are the decks that you are personally worried about running into?
So the big ones that I'm mostly worried about is decks that involve alternate win cons, such as, mill decks and like the Android 18 OTK deck. Those decks are the only decks that I'm really, really worried about, because there's not much interaction that I can do on my end to stop what they want to do.
Yep.
So they put me on a time clock where normally I'm putting my opponent on a time clock, which really changes the way that I have to play my particular Mechikabura list.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way with the decks that I'm considering for Gen Con as well.
Mm-hmm. Because Mill just has a inherently good matchup with Meki, because I searched the 7 balls. The 7 balls replace themselves, on activation. That I pretty much like do a majority of their work. What's the word I'm looking for? I got distracted because I'm playing the Gogeta, but
which I believe your SS4 Gogeta ignores the temporary barrier on mine, correct?
Yes, it does have the clause that ignores barrier. And this is another case of, I knew that the Gogeta was going to get removed because you have your blue Gogeta and then you run negates that also neg. So you can just blow out this card so easily. But again, experimental, I've actually think about taking this card down in the list, because most of the time it's just used as like a Hail Mary play to just blow up something on their field that has barrier.
And what you're seeing here is I'm negging at 20 with my Gogeta, and I'm also, first in the counter window I'm playing Is That All You Got, and then after the counter window I'm negging at 20.
Mm-hmm.
When the auto, because Fluff, correct me if I'm wrong, the auto goes into pending before the counter window, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And Gogeta does not stop it from activating skills.
Yeah.
So I was fully willing to just let the Gogeta go because I knew it was likely going to get blown up. But it's worth it to get rid of the threat on field.
One thing I can't emphasize enough for developing red player, like I only play red and blue. Those are, I don't have as much time to commit to the game as I would like, and I found that just focusing on 2 colors really helps my evolution as a player. So to people, who are committing to red, the single biggest piece of advice I can give is, in the current meta, I feel like strategies of Universe 7, of course, depending on, obviously it's worthless in Jiren, for example. But if you're running red Saiyans, it's almost indispensable, because your cards just don't last more than a turn without that card. Everything gets blown up. And if you have any hope of having a big boy for more than 1 turn, it's just absolutely essential.
Oh, and your Gogeta, the 6-drop Gogeta, is inherently a lightning rod for removal. Like, your opponent knows that card is problematic. They know if that card persists on the field, you win by attrition. So they have to remove it, which adding barrier to it greatly depletes the number of applicable options that your opponent has against it.
Mhm.
Now, this turn, my only goal, I have the Go Hanks SCR in hand. So, but of course, if you want it to go off, unless you're going to add unisons to it with your 6-drop or 5-drop Gogeta, or add markers, you need to hardcast it for 5. So my only goal this turn is deal 1 damage to him. He's at 4. I want to leave as much energy open as possible to survive his next turn, and I just want to deal a damage. If I can get him down to 3, my hope is to try to finish him with Go Hanks next turn.
So I was worried about running into a floodgate there, or I probably would have popped my ultimate wish to give triple attack, because I don't think at this point you had a topo in hand.
I did not, but I did have Imposing Presence. And if you had popped your triple, I would have just played that and, said, okay, there you go.
I would more so be playing it just to get the 3-card draw. I'm not too much worried about, actually dealing the damage as much as it is just give me 3 cards in my hand. But a topo completely nullifies, that strategy.
So, Jimmy, what's the mindset of not charging?
I just had too much good stuff in my hand.
Okay.
Like it was just I had too much good stuff, and I knew that Go Hanks could be coming down, and I needed everything I could get against that. Due to I took Dragon Slaying Bullet out of the list, so I don't have the option to try to counter the unison coming in. So I needed all of the combo power I could possibly get, and I felt like Vegeta, I could possibly rip Go Hanks. If I was lucky, but I ended up getting the 5-drop Gogeta, which is, really solid, because that's an integral part to his chain.
Yeah, at this point in the game, when he plays that Gogeta, I'm like, well, there's one card I cannot lose. And, if I lose Go Hanks, we're done. So when he got that 5-drop, I was just smiling.
To touch on something, walk it back a little bit towards when I played the SS4 thwarting. One of the cards that I've been playing is Vegeta Making an Entrance. It's a 1-drop counter that bottoms X 3 cards from your drop area and then plays a 15k body. And he's good like fusion material for the 8-drop SS4. I ended up taking him out, or taking out Dragon Slaying Bullet for him. And I think I said to Fluff that I'm just going to lose if I do this.
Are you at 3 life right now?
I'm at 4 right now.
So one mistake I made, I just noticed, I didn't even swing with Piccolo. That was dumb. I should have swung with Piccolo.
I do have the Poutine Floodgate in hand. So I believe I do. I believe I play it this turn.
I lose my entire hand to get through your Poutine.
Yeah.
Which, may be a long-term mistake. You don't want to, Poutine is weird, and Mechikabura is so good about putting its opponent on a clock that you almost feel the pressure to try to play through Poutine.
Now, one thing, and especially what I'm discarding, I wish I'd shown it. What I was discarding, they're all Violent Rays, Imposing Presences, just things I can't combo with. So I'm like, I've got to go for game, and if I have to give up, I think I really don't I feel like there's a death ball, but of course I can't play it because I'm out of energy. So I'm just those are my last 2 cards in hand for my final swing, and that's all I could combo with.
One of the worst things you can do against Mechikabura is expire your entire hand playing through one of those field wipes. The deck really makes you feel like you have to play through those because of how efficient it is, but you have a better chance of surviving the assault than you do wasting your entire hand and trying to get through.
I think no, I do think though with this game I had a window and I had to go, and in this particular instance it worked out and I won. Because I think it's just there's only I think, as you said, Fluff, there is a window, and in this case, I'm like, I've got an opening. I'm just screw it. I'm going for game. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it works.
It's a false window.
Yeah.
Really, the best thing would be to just kind of like pass, defend the turn, and then try to kill later. Like it's scary, but I really think that's the best way to approach.
If I had passed with like 5 open energy and like 2 violent rays, a topo, and an imposing presence, would I have survived that next turn?
Yeah, you would have certainly survived the next turn. I think very obviously with that spread.
The question is can you kill the next turn as well?
Yeah.
That's the tricky part.
And having all those extra cards in your hands helped you out with that final push.
Yeah.
And with that, thank you all for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Keep in mind there's buttons on the screen while Fluff does the outro.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully you learned something too. I mean, I think we all always pretty much learn something. But click on one of these 4 videos. Hopefully it's something that interests you or you haven't seen yet. Leave us some feedback. Let us know what you think of the videos. Read your cards, know your plays. Let us make the mistakes so that you don't have to. And as always, Fluff out.